Hey there, everybody. Franklin Taggart here, and it is time for the virtual coffee break. I've got my coffee. Grab your beverage, and let's have just a little bit of a chat, shall we? My good friend Teresa sent me, forwarded a letter to me, or I guess it was maybe an email newsletter that she had gotten that was written by an artist who was basically putting up pretty significant and justified resistance to a marketing expert or a branding expert that had gotten in front of a group of artists and said that the thing that's missing from what they're doing is branding. And it was an interesting article, and I got a lot out of it. But the thing that I really wanted to look at there is that I've been on both sides of that equation. I've been the person with the PowerPoint presentation, and I've been the person who's, going through the art career, trying to find an audience and trying to make a living. I've been on both sides of that coin, and neither one of them is particularly one that I recommend to anyone. The thing that was really interesting to me about that article, the guy had a lot of legitimate issues that he raised. And one of the things that I think is really important is to understand that there is some art that is commercial, it's viable as something to sell, it is something that people are willing to pay for. And then there is some art that may not ever find its resting place. It may not be intended to, be a commercial expression. It may not be really, may not be the kind of work that people want to put in their home or in their office or in their space or in their public space. And there are a couple of stories that came to mind as I was reading that article. And one of them was that I remember a good friend of mine talking about going to an opening that a friend of his had. And she was an artist that was a 3D artist that did a lot of work with like how people organize, and people either organize in like piles or boxes or bundles or things like that. And she had this really, really meaningful exhibit. And yet she was someone who really struggled financially because there weren't benefactors for her kind of art. There weren't patrons for her kind of art. There weren't people that were buying that to put in their home. And he talked about just how struck he was with her commitment to doing the art despite the fact that it wasn't something that she was able to generate revenue or income with. And he had talked a little bit about his experience as a singer-songwriter and as a traveling musician, that it took years of work before they found the right audience and enough of the right audience that they could actually sustain themselves and make a viable living from that. So the thing that I will say is that for the marketing expert that comes in and tells artists that the thing that they're missing is branding, or that their marketing message needs to be tightened up, I think it's right for this person to stand their ground and say, you're missing the point here. Art isn't about that. And if it sells, that's great. If people are able to make any part of their living from their art, that's great. And there's some art that doesn't lend itself to that kind of an exchange. So I think that guy that was writing this article was standing his ground legitimately, and I would back him up 100%. And I also agree with the person who's on the other side of the table saying that no matter if your art is commercial or not, you still have to find an audience. You still have to bring your art and put it in front of people. I think that it's being created for a reason. It's being created for some kind of enrichment, some kind of experience, some kind of closure of a circle of some kind. So you do need to get out there and find your audience. And a part of that is branding and messaging and positioning and all of the things that marketers talk about. Now, one of the things that I loved about the way that this article ended was that the fellow said that what he's not asking for is for that person to go away completely. But what he was asking for is a couple of things. He was asking that the person get down off of their soapbox about branding and really get to know the artists that they're talking to and understand that their motivations, their reasons for creating all of those things may not be related to business, may not be related to income, may not be related to money. But one of the things that he did say, and one of the things that he did ask for, is something that I will ask for as well. And that is that I think we need to have partners across disciplinary lines, right? I think artists need to have partners who are business people. They need to have partners who are financial people. They need to have partners who are teachers. They need to have partners who are community activists. I think what we really need to do is to start breaking down all of the specialty walls that we've created over the last 100 years and really look at what does a next level of partnership look like between all of these different disciplines? What is possible if artists do come together with the people who are experienced in marketing and sales and branding? And instead of the branding people saying that, in order to be a commercial success, you have to do this, what if the branding people came along and said, in order for you to make a meaningful connection with the audience who is going to appreciate this work, this is what you need to do. I think we might have a different kind of a conversation. We might have a different kind of an experience, right? The other story that I was reminded of in this person's letter, one of my favorite composers is the 20th century music composer Charles Ives. Now, Charles Ives was really well known in the music realm for his risk taking and his experimentation with very different systems of understanding music and tonality and polytones and different kinds of rhythms and things like that. And if you listen to his music, it's not like listening to a very pleasing Baroque Bach sonata or something like that. Very often it's like if you listen to a Charles Ives piece, it's kind of like trying to watch a really loud television program while there's a parade going by and there's a family from another country that are all having a really loud conversation in the apartment next door that you can overhear completely. That's kind of what a Charles Ives piece sounds like. Early in his career, he didn't get a lot of recognition and his music was not widely popular. So Charles Ives, he started out, while he was in college, he worked his way through college as a church organist. But after he got out of college, he was an actuarial for an insurance company. And then he opened his own insurance company. And he was an insurance, representative for his entire professional life. And I don't know, probably when he was somewhere in his 50s, he found out that he had diabetes and he decided to retire. And his intention was that he was going to compose more music. But one of the things that he found was that he didn't have the physical capacity to do that. And so after his retirement, he was really basically done. So what was really interesting is like later in his life, other people championed his work, and it became somewhat more well-known and popular. But he never saw, I don't think he ever saw much financial reward, if any, from his composition. What's really interesting is that after he died, I think he died in like 1954, after he died, his wife created a scholarship, and when she died, all of the royalties from his music went to fund that scholarship. And so what's really interesting is that his art didn't benefit him financially, but it is now facilitating the education of other composers. Now, that story to me is just as inspiring as if he were to have become the most popular composer of his time and had enjoyed, all kinds of acclaim and all kinds of financial reward and success during his lifetime. But that just wasn't the story. That doesn't take away one whit of his value and his contribution to our culture. So the thing that I'm going to put out there is that I want to encourage people on both sides of the story here. If you're a branding and a marketing person and you're trying to help people who are creative, I think you need to really get to know them before you bring your strategies to them, because I don't think your strategies, your boilerplates, aren't going to work in that world as well as you think they might. Now, the second thing that I'm going to say to artists is that I know that you've got a vision. I know that you've got a reason that's pushing you forward into this work. And I think it's important for you to allow other people to partner with you in ways that will allow you to be supported so that you can do more of the work that you are here to do. So that's my 2 bits for today. Thanks, Teresa, for sending that inspiration on to me. And we're going to be hearing from Teresa in this week's podcast. We're going to be talking a little bit about the end of her sabbatical and getting comfortable with not knowing what's next is going to be the theme of the podcast on Friday. So Teresa is going to be back on Friday with another wonderful contribution. Thank you all so much for your time and your attention. I hope this has been something of an inspiration to you, and I'll be looking forward to another coffee break tomorrow. So long.